Three men were hiking in a forest when they came upon a large, raging, violent river. Needing to get across to the other side, the first man prayed, "God, please give me the strength to cross the river." Puff! God gave him big arms and strong legs, and he was able to swim across, nearly drowning twice. After witnessing that, the second man prayed, "God, please give me the strength and the tools to cross the river." Puff! God gave him a rowboat and strong arms and strong legs, and they're able to row across the river, but almost capsizing twice. Seeing what happened to the first two men, the third man prayed, "God, please give me the strength, the tools, and the intelligence to cross the river." Poof! He suddenly turned into a woman. She checked the map, hiked up 100 yards upstream, and walked across the bridge. Always remember, if at first you don't succeed, do it the way your missus told you the first time. You know, it's a bit like that with our relationship with God. How many times have we tried to do it our way, but we've failed? Our gospel reading this morning is about the kingdom of God, and our New Testament reading talks about living by faith, not by sight. In other words, listen to God and not to our own understanding. Jesus, in his teaching all the time, uses parables. And here is no different. We know so well the parable of the mustard seed. You know, it's the smallest seed there is. The mustard seed is so tiny, and yet it grows into a huge plant, sometimes reaching 10 foot tall. And in biblical times, it was really quite a problem. It was busted up foundations and roads, the Roman roads. It was so strong, it just burst right through. Jesus also uses similar imagery in Matthew chapter 13. We know that parable well as well about the yeast. And we all know what happens to yeast besides being a vital ingredient in beer. These images are typical of Jesus. Here he is talking to a crowd, expectant, probably wanting and expecting to hear something different. Most of them would have been familiar with the Old Testament. They'd have been familiar with the language. And here it is, Jesus talking about a mustard seed. And yet, we all know the language of the Old Testament, don't we? It's about, the imagery is really strong. We hear about earthquakes and volcanoes and violent storms. And here's Jesus talking to the crowd about a mustard seed. Trouble is we limit God. We rely on our own understanding. Jesus says, "Ask in my name and it will be given." Doesn't mean to say we can ask for a new Buick. But if we ask, and it's for the glory of God, it will be given to us. And we don't seem to believe that. It's pretty straightforward. Our God never lets us down. We let him down all the time. He just picks us up and dusts us off and says, "Go at it again. I'm right there with you." Do you know, we no longer expect miracles. And if we don't expect them, we're unlikely to see them. In a large part, we are overseers of a declining church. And yet, we have all the tools to grow. to flourish. We might, each one of us, be a tiny mustard seed, but we can grow into that 10-foot plant that is wrecked roads and foundations. You know, it's interesting that where God's church is growing is in the two-thirds world. And it's growing there because people rely on God. Often they haven't got much else to rely on, so they rely on God. Here we're surrounded by consumerism, by everything that can distract us. You know, we looked earlier at spiritual crutches. We all have them. You know, sometimes God speaks to us in whispers. Bill Hybels from Willow Creek talks about God whispers. And so we have to be attentive to hear it. And it's very easy for us to dismiss it. I said, oh God, okay, yeah, I hear you whispering away in the background there, but look, I'm busy. I've got too much to do. I've got this to do, that to do. I just haven't got time for you. We do it. Do you know, last week, how many were here at 10 o'clock last week? Yeah. Did you hear Bill? Our little moment in the vestry where my belt broke. I have it here. And we were talking away about the crisis. And as I walked into church, I could feel the expectation of the congregation. I wonder if his trousers are going to fall down. They didn't. They stayed up. It's what we do. We have belt and braces, or do you say belt and suspenders? But you know, how many here wear a belt? Okay. What happens when you take that belt off? Because generally speaking, your trousers don't fall down. But you kind of feel weird, don't you? Kind of feel that you're kind of missing something. It puts you in an uncomfortable place. I have to admit that last week, although I knew my trousers weren't going to fall down, so I put on a bit of weight. Although I knew they weren't going to fall down, I felt uncomfortable. And that's what we need to do. We need to get rid of our crutches. We need to get rid of our belts. And that's where God wants us. He wants us to feel uncomfortable. So what does he want to do that for? Because we need to trust in him. We need to trust in God. God will provide everything that we need. Not everything that we want. He'll provide everything that we need. But we have to be able to say to God, God, I can't do this, but I'll try. And we will succeed if we do it in God's strength, not in our own. Amen.